6 members present. Pursuant to provisions of the Metropolitan Code, you can appeal any decision to the Chancery Court if you have a lot of money and time for review of a common law writ of certiorari. Any appeal must be filed within 60 days after entry of a final decision by the Commission. I don't think we ever made a final decision, but that's okay. So, with that, we'll call to order notice of appeal rights. Next item is to approve the minutes from our last meeting on January 13th. Anybody have any amendments or changes to the minutes?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Tourism analysis and discussion. For this, we sent out a number of different pieces of information that either I'd gathered or Talia had gathered, or they may not all reconcile perfectly because of the different sources of information that we had. But we tasked Emily Evans to pull all this together into a coherent whole, which she did. And Emily, I'll turn it over to you to start off the discussion of tourism.
Okay, so recall that the charge here is to find ways to make Nashville's tourism economy work for all of Nashville, all of Nashvillians, including people who like to be temporary Nashvillians for the weekend or a week or what have you. So to get there, I thought it would be helpful to start with what are really two important pieces, and then next time I'm going to ask for some time to talk about the third piece. But I think this is what I can fit into an hour, and that is the revenue streams that are associated with tourism. What are those? How are they enabled? How are they encumbered? And then the debt to which those revenue streams are applied, how it's encumbered, how it's structured, and so forth. And I hope that will then start I have 3 ideas at the end of the presentation, but there might be others, but I'm hoping the presentation will stimulate additional questions and maybe even some other ideas. So to begin, on your desk should be a little 10-slide presentation, because I can't talk without a PowerPoint near me anymore up here. And I'm going to go through the taxes first that are associated with tourism, and then we'll talk about more of it later. So the bulk of the tourism taxes that we collect as a city is the hotel occupancy tax. That's a privilege tax under state law. The original chunk of hotel occupancy taxes dates from the late 70s, early 80s, and that is a 3% privilege tax. And it's imposed on all rooms. So the value that we receive from a hotel occupancy tax is a function of 1, the tax rate, and 2, the price of the room. So collections, with all things being equal, collections will go up as room prices go up. Collections will go down as room prices go down. So 3% is the original. 1%, this was added in the 1990s, and then the other 2 1% for a total of 6% were added in 2007 with an eye towards building what we now know as the Music City Center. The hotel occupancy taxes are earmarked in this little pie chart. Will tell you how. And in the state law, and I included, if anyone wants to go read it, I included the Tennessee Code citation with each of these taxes. But the state designated, when they approved the taxes, specific purposes. So 2 cents is for the direct promotion of tourism. That is generally construed to mean payments to the Convention and Visitors Corporation, used to be in CBP, now it's a CBC. Constructing and maintaining the MCC, tourism-related activities, which could include the MCC, but could also not include the MCC. And then general fund uses. So 2 cents to the CBB, and then the other 4 cents are split up as I listed there. Now, those aren't the only taxes that we collect. When we were working towards approval of the Music City Center, assume the tourism industry, because it was the '07 session. I don't think that was the mayor's office, but the state passed a $2 per bed per head tax. So that's a function of how many hotel rooms we sell in this county each year. It doesn't move in relation to the price of the rooms. It's just a flat $2 per bed per head tax.
So when it says bed, if there's 2 people in the room, it's
No,
$4?
it's one room in the industry. They refer to it, as the head and bed. How many
I was
heads?
just thinking, how many heads are in the bed?
Nobody comes by to count them.
Nobody,
I wanted to count them, baby.
So the $2, there's $2, and you can look at that and actually know how many hotel rooms we sell each year, which is kind of cool. Then there is 50 cents. Then the $2, that should say rental car, not rental care. Apologize. And then the tourist development zone, which we've talked a good bit about in this commission. These are also encumbered for specific uses. The $2 specifically says if there are any surpluses, they're retained by Metro for debt service, presumably for the Music City Center, although interestingly enough, it doesn't say specifically. The TDZ is used for the Music City Center maintenance, debt service, and everything as well. So,
Steve has a question.
Mr. Getz has his finger up.
so are all of these, the first one was a tax of general application. In other words, in my parlance, that means other counties could do the same thing.
this first one appears to be for all counties statewide, yeah.
Yeah, but all of the rest of them were passed with, that language that says a metropolitan government between a certain size and a certain size.
Census,
Yeah.
1970, yes.
And so they only apply, including the bedhead tax or any of these others.
That's correct.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
And what the applicability of that definition is, besides Metro, I didn't
There's
look.
not. There's
Yeah,
nobody else.
there's nobody else, okay. So these are our special Metro taxes. So if you look at the next, this stacked column chart is basically this data, only in visual form.
Sorry, one quick question though,
Yeah.
but I know like Memphis has a TDZ.
Yes.
Right, so there are other.
Pigeon Forge has a TDZ. There are other TDZs that are defined and may have their own
Their own
tax on
statute,
that one on
that's
the last
right.
one.
Yeah.
But the others,
Sorry, I didn't mean to bring us back to that.
No, I was
but
trying to find fellow travelers, if you will, who might have an interest in these taxes. That's why I was asking.
The TDZ was created in 1998, I think, for Pigeon Forge.
That's correct. It was created for Pigeon.
Okay, and then Memphis used it, and then it was amended for Metro.
Drawing those zones was always a terrible process, too.
What?
Drawing these zones was a terrible process.
Yeah, that will, especially when you have a big giant river next to your building. Okay, so this is a graph of collections, and as you can see, as we say on Wall Street, up and to the right. And this last bar is just part of the year for collections. So through December, but clearly it was 175 million in 19, and it's tracking to close to 200, maybe a little over in 2020, right?
If I can jump in here, the one that's really got my attention was the TDZ revenue. The actual last year for the whole year was 44 million. We're already at 56.
Yeah.
Is there seasonality to it all? Do you know?
Now,
I
we
think
checked
are there
into that. It's
slower-
following the same kind of seasonality pattern. There's just more.
That's a simple diversion of the sales tax, if I
Yes.
remember right. That's why I didn't like it as F&A commissioner, because it was taking state sales tax money.
There you
A
go.
lot of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
There you go.
So let's talk then about
Can I
the,
ask a question before you move on?
yeah,
You said that this chart is basically a graphical representation of this, but I would really love if we can get these categories mapped specifically onto the taxes, because I know there's some magic going on, because it's not the same categories or the same number of
right,
categories.
I consolidated short-term rentals, and I just did it by the tax classification. So we're here, we've broken it out for short-term rentals, and then we have hotel occupancy. I just combined them because they're the same tax, just applied to different.
And airport's on one, not the other.
I combined those as contracted vehicles.
Can we get the key to actually tie these two together?
Yeah, we can regraph it too, if you want to get that.
Well, to me, the most important thing is that this is also not, it doesn't line up with the same categories as the taxes.
Right, and I think Talia did it by account.
Okay.
I know. We did this a year ago.
Yeah.
But that, I think, that's part of what creates confusion, is that this is absolutely tied to Metro's accounts, chart of accounts, but there's no way to intuitively figure out which tax is in which bucket. You can figure out some of them as a pretty good guess, but you can't tell them all.
Okay.
And I think that's a place where it would ultimately help if we had some way to tie the individual taxes to the chart of account number.
Let me just share with you what we did, because as a follow-up item, this document that we handed out, we used this as a starting point, which was the document that Margaret had provided us last time, because we wanted to show the revenue based on these citations. So that's how this spreadsheet is organized. I just want to make sure you all understand. This should track back to this document with the TCA references.
Yeah, and which,
Okay?
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Can we talk about the TDZ just a little?
Yes.
Just so everybody's kind of on a level set there. So a tourist development zone, as I said, the law was created in 1998 for Pigeon Forge, and then Memphis adopted it. And the way it works is the state establishes a base revenue collection for the county. So this is how much money we're expecting to, under all things being equal, for this tax base to grow. Then what is assumed is anything in excess of that base level, that base rate amount, is considered attributable to the qualified public use facility, which in this case is the Music City Center. So the presumption, and it was made really before a lot of downtown metros just took off after the recession. So it assumes that it's attributable to the Music City Center, when in fact it could be just the increased density of the downtown area, or it could be other factors. But that's how it's calculated. Talia, correct me if I got any of that wrong, but that's,
Yes.
yeah. That's
What was the base year that was set into?
2010, wasn't it?
I'd probably be throwing it out and I wouldn't be able to.
It's not ever rebased?
Yeah.
They don't rebase?
No,
Okay.
no, it was a base year that was set. I just don't remember that base year.
Maybe I'm wrong. I'll look that up.
Margaret, do you know the base year?
2010 sounds right. I know
Yeah,
that's
I
when
just
a
don't
lot
want
of
to
this
commit to
was-
that.
No, that's fine. But
Absolutely.
as long as they can't, rebasing would be tough, right? That could be tricky.
The boundaries of the TDZ, the law says that it's to be no more than 1 mile from the convention center, but the F&A commissioner, if he determines a municipality requires an unusually shaped zone because of some geographical limitation, then they can draw it, but it can't be more than 3 square miles in size.
That again was done for Pigeon Forge so they could go out and get the Bass Pro Shop out by the interstate. I'm not making that up.
And Memphis because of the Mississippi River, right? And then Nashville, of course, had the Cumberland River. So, so I think we have the 3 square mile limitation, and the distance is, you know, from the Music City Center goes up to Jefferson Street, to the river, then up West End to 21st, right? 440? 440, thank you. Yeah, 440. And then south, not sure where the boundary is on the south side, but not much further than the Music City Center. So,
It's kind of narrows out
Yeah.
as it goes out to West End, as far as
yeah,
I'm correct.
that's what I remember too. Okay, so anyway,
Emily, we talked a little bit about, because out in the community, there's a confusion that is hard to explain, that I think would be good to get on video, is so there's an understanding out in the community that all the sales tax and that TDZ, if it weren't going to the convention center, would all go to Metro. And can you discuss?
yeah, so if you look at this, you can see for TDZ revenues, there is the local option sales tax, and then there's the Tennessee sales tax levy. That represents the redirection from both the state of Tennessee and the city of Nashville to the tune of looking like $100 million this year potentially. So the state is having about $40 million diverted, and the city is having about $14 million diverted. If this were to go away, or even right-sized so that it was collecting revenue more appropriate for the debt requirements of the MCC, some big portion of that would go to the state. But of course, it would come back to us in other forms, but a big portion of that would go to the state, and
I want to, there's immense confusion in the public, and so when you say a big share of that would come back, so the first step, using last year's number, fiscal 19 actual, if the TDZ had been abolished, of the $44.7 million collected in the TDZ, Metro would have got 12.2,
Right.
and the state would have gotten 32.5.
Right.
So,
and then a portion of that would go into the school's pass-through bucket and come back to us in that form as well.
any sense of the scope of that?
Remember, because of the BEP formula, we're
Yeah,
going to
we're-
get less of that than we would otherwise.
Right, it would go to other schools as well, but we would get some portion of it. What's our,
We probably wouldn't have gotten any of it.
I don't think we would have gotten any
Our
of it.
BEP share only went up $500,000 in the
Oh,
current
okay.
year. We probably wouldn't have gotten
I'm out of date on that
which
then.
means other jurisdictions would have gotten the benefit of that.
And so I'm trying to be completely value judgment less about the whole thing, but just as a matter of accuracy, last year, if the TDZ hadn't existed at all, Metro would have gotten about 12.2 million more to the general fund, and the state would have made another 32.5 million bucks.
and this year probably around 26.
Right. And so I think it's important that the public knows that killing off the TDZ doesn't mean every lick of sales tax collected in that area, the 44 million, goes to Metro. It's, at least as of last year, looking like, was that just around 25% of it?
Okay, any more on that? I'll move on to the next pie chart.
I guess the other question, just to follow up on that, assuming the debt service is sufficient without these funds for the convention center, but that we want to know that if you remove this from the debt service stream for the convention center, that you would still have an adequate revenue
We're going to get to that in a
base.
minute.
Okay, great.
Let me get just, so I know we were talking about the BEP on this, the money that's going to the state. Is there any way to figure out if there was anything else where, if tax revenues go up by a certain amount, that we would get back a certain amount of money, or just,
No, I mean,
There's no way to
in
figure
terms
that
of the BEP in particular, they've
Yeah.
got a very convoluted complicated formula for the distribution, and it's based on our ability to raise revenue. So they would see this as an opportunity to raise revenue, which could actually go in the opposite direction, and you may end up with less money than what you started out with.
But
Is that correct, former commissioner?
47 components to the BEP, and there are like 5 people up there who understand it.
Yeah.
But
It is tricky.
yeah, it is tricky. But for us, it is that we are always going to be having
End.
put in 60% of the funding as the richest and the most capable, financially capable in the state, if you will. So it just simply is always going to be a loss in that way.
So in essence, it simply means less money for the classroom. With the
I can't
BEP.
guarantee how.
But I'm just
how
throwing it out there.
BEP would determine, but you have to, this whole notion of
Well-
fiscal capacity
Yeah.
is very complicated.
The classrooms would definitely get 6 million out of the 12 million, because that's
Yeah.
just by
Yes.
law, that's what has to happen. So that would be.
That would be the saving grace there.
That would be that would be the net there. The question is whether none of the other money comes back.
This is just the
Right.
source of income.
And the city could decide to
And the-
give the entirety of the 12 million to schools. That they choose.
And the TDZ, if the TDZ were to go away tomorrow, the TDZ, this is earmarked specifically for the operation payment of debt service. So it can't be used for any other purpose unless we can change the state law and then the bonded nature. So it's locked up.
I guess just one other thing on this before we move on. This hypothetical we're imagining, if it hadn't existed last year, Metro would have got 12.2 million more. Metro also would have had 32 million less of paying down debt with the state's money. And so there's the,
So we'll get to that in a minute.
but it's,
We got plenty of money.
I hear you. We got plenty of money to the point where we're happy to waive off $32 million of the state's money, paying our debts.
Well, let's move on with the presentation, and then we can weigh out the options. And yeah, we sure keep the TDZ around that until they do something else. All right, tourism taxes. This is the breakdown pie chart of collections, and as I said, right now we're collecting about 175 million last year, tracking towards 200 this year, which is way in excess of what we modeled back in 2010 by a factor of 3 to 4. So a huge difference. Okay, then here's and just to put the tourism taxes in the context of all revenue sources, this pie chart demonstrates the major revenue sources for Metro, not all of them, but the ones that matter the most, which of course are property taxes, the local option sales tax, and I assume that the tourism taxes are buried inside of other taxes, licenses, and permits, which is 296 million. So tourism taxes represent a big chunk of other taxes we collect. So, any questions about that, just for context? It's obviously not every tax we collect. Okay. All right, so that's the revenue side. The debt side of all of this is primarily the convention center debt, which was issued in 2010. And there are 3 components to that debt profile, the capital stack for the convention center. The first are Series 2010A1, and these are tax exempt. $51 million was the original size of the bond issue, maturing in July of 2026, with a call feature. And let me explain that just in 1 minute. What that means. And this particular this particular series, as we call it, are secured by those taxes. The second series, these are federally taxable using a device called Build America bonds, which was very popular they've been around for a long time, but during the Great Recession, they were pretty popular. This is $152 million with a final maturity. Debt's all paid off in July of 2043. It has what we call a make whole call, which I'll explain and I'll come back and talk about calls in one thing. This is also secured by the tourism, solely by the tourism tax revenues. And then the last piece, $419 million, those are secured by the tourism taxes, but subordinate to these two chunks of Series A bonds, meaning these guys get paid first, then you pay the operating revenue on the facility, and then you pay these 2010 B bonds. They're also federally taxable. One of the tricky parts about our convention center debt is that it was issued, the Series A, the smallest piece, $51 million, were issued with a 10-year call feature, just standard in municipal finance. But the other two were issued with a make whole call, which, to simplify it, means that the bondholder would basically get all the money he was going to get if he'd held the bonds until they matured. This was nearly unheard of before 2009-10, but as a part of the Great Recession, it was a device in a very illiquid period in the U.S. financial system to induce people to invest in bonds. So what that means is that refinancing the debt is not as straightforward except for the Series A1 series. But I'm going to talk about options here in a sec.
And straightforward means there's no financial advantage to paying them early.
No, there could be. I don't have the technology to run the math, but there absolutely could be a potential way to work through that.
With better rate?
Better rate, which we're getting right now. You also have a refunding opportunity, $51 million, the 2010 A1s. That savings could offset some of the costs associated with paying down the make whole. And let me talk about some options here in a minute. But what we as a city were convinced of was that we would have to do this make whole call in order to get the convention center financed, even though we were, a AA credit. And look, in retrospect, maybe not the best decision ever.
But again, no one knew that the tourism was going to do what it's done, right? I mean, that was kind of also the deal, is that there was a lot of skepticism that, in fact, the convention center was going to be successful.
I thought it was more from what you said before. It's market conditions meant that you couldn't do this.
Well, and a city
without
like
that
Charlotte
promise.
did not do that.
Yeah.
Dallas did, Charlotte did not. I'm sure there's some other examples. But if you were a highly rated credit, it wasn't something you necessarily had to do. And there were other options too, which we can get into, but water under the bridge.
But yeah, this is what we did.
This is what we did. These are the decisions we made.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I understood what you said.
Okay.
So on the two where the call is make whole, what I heard, and it may not be what you meant, but what I heard is if we decided to refinance next year, the people that bought these original bonds would get all the interest as if they held it to 2043.
We're getting real simple, but yes, there's a discount rate applied to that. But just for simplicity's sake, let's talk about it that way.
So it would have cost. So if we refinance because we see a better rate, if I'm understanding this correctly, our cost would be this rate of interest for the next 20-some years plus the new rate of interest. So it would have to be awfully. I don't understand how that could ever be better.
there's a there's a discount rate applied. So, okay, so you have a payment, an interest payment every 6 months from now until 2043. Okay, so the further out you go,
So it's,
the less that money is worth. So you're discounting it. So you're not giving them actual and nominal dollars.
okay, so the
How's the
make whole
discount
doesn't
calculated?
mean they get everything plus.
45 basis, help me out,
They
Beth.
get the present value. of the
Present
full
value.
swing
Okay.
payment.
Treasury plus
Plus
30
30,
basis
yeah.
points.
Treasury plus
Okay.
30 basis points.
Okay, I'm fine then. It sounded when you first said make whole, like they're gonna get everything, so I think they'd be encouraging us to go out and do something else and they get all their money now. When that terminology kind of,
The most important thing to know and understand is that makes refinancing even in a declining interest rate environment not as viable as what would be the case with the Series A1 bonds and would be the case with a lot of our other debt too.
and since the Series A, when it says it has a call of July 1st of this year, that in banking, we would call a loan because we felt uncomfortable with the entity we had loaned the money to. So does the impact that the state comptrollers come in have any
It
impact?
calls it the option of the city, I
Yeah,
think,
that's right.
as opposed to the bondholder.
That's standard municipal finance, is to put a 10-year call feature. Why? Because interest rates change, and you want to refinance that, and it isn't the option of the.
But it doesn't mean they ask for it because they're not, don't trust us
No,
anymore.
no. It's pretty, okay, the other, in addition to the bond requirements, the other obligation we have related to Music City Center is our payments to the Omni Hotel. They have a property tax abatement, although the school levy is still paid.
Is it a total property tax abatement?
No, the school levy is excluded.
But I mean, the non-school portion is a total.
That's how I
property tax.
understand it, yeah,
Okay.
so. And then because the IDB owns the property, and then they make a voluntary
Got it.
levy.
Yep.
They also have $25 million in TIF, and then finally, they get paid an incentive payment of between 20 and 25, 12 million annually, and between 26 and 32, 15 million annually. Metro has backstopped those incentive payments with a pledge of non-tax revenues, and Metro has pledged not to not appropriate, which I didn't know we could do that, but it's there in the agreement. And then it has the non-tax pledge is subordinate to some prior pledges for the stadium, the arena, and of course the 2010.
Why was it, what were the incentive payments intended to do?
Get Omni to build a hotel, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was by rumor, there was going to be another provider to build a hotel. It didn't come together. It was going to have a hard time finding somebody. Omni said they'd do it, but it required a certain amount of help.
That's vaguely what I recall as well.
So, and this essentially is tax-free revenue to them?
I don't know how it's treated from a tax perspective.
Okay.
And I guess it would depend on their P&L profile too.
But it's a direct cash payment from Metro.
You write them a check, right? Yep.
Okay. Just trying to keep up.
All right, then if you add those together, this chart shows all of the debt obligations associated with.
Can I just mention one of the,
Yeah.
people are going to watch this, and people who think this is news to them, like, absolutely fair, because it's sort of shocking when you hear it. But, like, council passed it however many years ago. It's in the annual audit every year. It's easy to find. If
And again, this was at the time when things were difficult.
Right.
And in this particular hotel situation, as you were saying, they were having trouble finding someone to be the anchor hotel for the convention center. So they were tied together pretty closely. All right.
Okay, so
And we've had surplus tourism taxes, so
So-
Metro's
this
obligation
is-
on that is
yeah, we've done well. So when you add up those three big components, the Series A bonds, the Series B bonds, and the Omni payments, this chart is what you get. So We are collecting roughly, let's call it 200 million in taxes associated with tourism, and we are obligated, and this is not counting the operating expenses associated with the building, we're obligated to pay around 53 million in payments to the Omni and to the bondholders. So you've got 3 to 4 more times revenue than you do actual financing.
And for this chart, the dark blue is the direct payments to the Omni.
That is the incentive payments to the Omni. I didn't
So-
try and calculate the TIF and the property tax abatement. I'm looking at it as,
So those both kind of cut different ways, depending on how you look at it.
yeah. And I think, and these are, those payments, the TIF and the property tax abatement, don't have the same encumbrances and constraints as your debt does, where you have to deliver a certain coverage ratio, and of course the Omni, we've made some pledges there as well. So these are like, think of it as hard costs.
But it's the conclusion that it's 3 to 4x revenue versus obligations. I was just thinking about how the foregoing, the TIF, the property taxes factors into.
So the TIF, you would put that back in the revenue bucket, but it wouldn't be earmarked for the MCC. It would be general revenue, and same with the property tax abatement.
Thanks.
And then, so, kind of to tie it all up, when we financed the Music City Center, we came up with a financing plan that was consistent. Yeah, Rick?
Sorry. The tax payment that we make to the Omni, does that have an end?
Yes, it ends in 2032.
Okay, I'll be dead, thank you.
And the language is difficult here because it sounds like, but it's not a tax payment to them, it's a direct payment just for them.
Right, and then after 2032, do they have to start paying something to the city, like taxes?
The tax abatement and the direct payment to them are not tied. The tax abatement is 20 years, and they start paying full property taxes after 20 years. The direct payment to them of the 12, going to be 15 million, that ends in 2032. So those aren't tied, they're separate components.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so when you look at the debt, you look at the revenue, what we did, and for good reason, we had this crazy financial system meltdown. We had we were building a convention center at a difficult time. We had coming out of a recession. I mean, there's a lot of components that went into the decision making, but at the end of the day, what we did is we overfinanced it. We have way more revenue going into that bucket that anybody who was financing a building for this purpose, or really any municipal project, would assign in a more stable environment. Does that make sense? We are
overly cautious.
We were overly cautious, but we also wrote state law and some other things in a way that we didn't give ourselves a lot of room to maneuver. And I'm going to send this around. I didn't bring copies of it, but Moody's recently wrote up an analysis of cities that are able to weather a recession. And you would think that with us growing the way we are and the things that have gone on, that we would be in a strong position to weather a recession, and we're not. And a lot of the things they cite when they review our credit is lack of flexibility. Our ability to move and balance the different objectives. So anyway, I put down 3 ideas which would allow some of that revenue to be freed up to move more freely through the government for other purposes, while of course always keeping an eye on, we have to pay our bondholders back, we have to pay the Omni. We don't have any way to avoid that. But there are some things that we should consider and discuss. These are 3 ideas, and anybody's can come up with more. The first is to continue the intergovernmental agreements. Those are what we've been doing, Talia, for the last 4 years, 3 years? 4 years, okay. And that's where the city goes to the Convention Center Authority and work it out, figure out, how much they'll give. That has one of the pros I put down is it's pretty easy to do. You're right down there in Lower Broad. Cons, it can get kind of political. It may, in a downturn, be more difficult to negotiate. It doesn't do anything to address the overall lack of flexibility in our finances that have caught the attention of the rating agencies. It doesn't do much to reduce overall borrowing costs either.
And then I think this is a question. I think another con is it doesn't have a lot of upside for freeing up a lot of money, because even if, I've heard anecdotally that, if you tried to say, okay, well, have the convention center pay for all the garbage pickup in downtown, that you add that up and it's just not that big a dollar amount. And so, at least anecdotally, I understand that even if you tried to figure out, dumping a whole bunch of metro services and calling it tour, everything, if it's provided within a square mile of downtown, it's all tourism.
Right.
That it just doesn't get you that giant a number in the end.
And I think even if it did get you a giant number, I think you're in a somewhat precarious position, because as far as I know, we haven't really done, those taxes are specifically earmarked for specific purposes under state law. And as far as I know, we haven't actually done a study to ensure that that's what we're doing. Are we doing that? We probably are, but
I think that's the risk too, is that if you tried to figure out what was tourism, it would be kind of a tough argument to claim that every police officer that sets foot in downtown is tourist related. Yeah. Every garbage truck is tourist related. And so my suspicion is, if we're listing cons, that it may not turn out to be enough of a number to be material.
So the second option is changes to state law, which, state law specifies how you, and number 2 might want it to go with number 3. You can amend the state law so that Metro is given more flexibility with surplus funds to use those for other purposes. So instead of the language saying surplus funds will go for the payment of debt service on the Music City Center, it could also say, and for any other purpose deemed appropriate by the finance director. That would be another possibility.
You take the risk that the state will ask for their money back or for a share of it back?
They might, and I don't know that they aren't. They have obligations too.
Well, that for 2 and 3 in both, just because Talia mentioned it, to me the biggest risk for both of them is that if you ask the state for anything, whether you put the TDZ and most specifically that 3/4 of the money that's the state's money at risk.
So if you that's a risk, and I think
or other changes which are not.
Yeah, you're going to go.
You open it up to.
You open
changes.
up everything.
Yeah. And I mentioned, that it might affect other jurisdictions, and so there might be a hesitancy to alter for that reason. It doesn't really reduce our profile, may increase our flexibility somewhat. I don't know that it would be sufficient for the rating agencies. That's something that we would need to look at.
I'd
we'd
like
have
to
to-
add a pro on number one though, and that'd be public perception.
In number one, public perception, positive or negative?
Positive. Because, I mean, even if it isn't that many more dollars, I think the public really wants to see expenses and income somehow
Hopefully
tied
they're happy
together.
with the 12.6 that the mayor already got.
Pardon?
Hopefully the public is happy with the 12.6 that the mayor already got out of the convention center per year.
I still think, at least I hear, when I'm out talking to my folks, they often talk about the expense, the tourism not paying for the expenses. True or not,
Well,
that's a perception.
I mean, on that front, I think we were sort of obligated to push back. It's fundamentally not true. Like, if we were going to have the convention center pay for every last metropolitan government service provided within a half mile of the building, there's not that much, what we were just talking about, it's just not that much.
As Councilman Michael Craddock used to say, perception is the cruelest form of reality. When I went door to door in my second election, I heard a lot about the water department paying for Nissan Stadium, and it had been, 10 years? 20 years? I mean, yeah, it sticks in people's
And that is something that
imagination.
sticks still.
Yeah, and it does stick. So the state law changes, it's obviously a political process, and there is some risk with that. I've never been one to immediately assume that the state is going to do something bad to us. I know that there's lots of reason to feel that way, but I've actually found them to be pretty cooperative on most things. But
I think that's right. I think on this one, the specific risk is, though, if we're going to them saying, gee, we're just accumulating way too much money, can we change it so we accumulate less money?
you think they don't know?
Yeah.
But if we
You think they're
wait a
not
minute.
going, you know,
I
there's
didn't tell them.
Emily, there's a difference between that's the ground rules that exist versus going to them saying, hey, can we change the ground rules so we get to keep all the extra money, but not you guys?
But also keep in mind, you're focused on this $32 million. We're looking at $175 million. So let's say some portion of that 32 disappears, calls it 15. You still have a lot more flexibility than you did before.
Emily, one thing I've
Then
ever,
you're just flushing the tens of millions of the state's money to pay the debt?
But the debt is fine. Debt's paid. What the money is being used for is alternatives, like the acquisition of a parking garage. I think they're going to buy another building.
I agree with all that. It's the sort of intentionally choosing to flush the state's money and have them keep it rather than us use it to pay the debt.
Well, then,
that I
if you go
struggle
to
with.
number 3, for example, what you could do is leave all that state law stuff alone, refinance the debt as general obligations of Metro. The state does not say that you have to give this money to the Convention Center Authority. What the state says, you'll create a Convention Center fund, okay, which you could do on the books, you could do it with a Convention Center Authority, you could do it any way you want. Okay, so you refinance it, you pay off that make-whole expense, you pay for that. You can do that two ways. One, with some of the cash they're sitting on. 2, by financing it. You can rewrite the bond indenture, maybe keep the TDZ there, maybe not. Whatever gives you additional flexibility. And by the way, you get much lower cost of money because it's general obligation bonds. That's how we financed the original convention center. And that's how a lot of convention centers across the country are financed. This approach does increase our flexibility. It does address some of the concerns that Moody's has outlined. Takes time, a little expensive. Probably would require the Omni people to get comfortable with it as well. You could combine 3 with some of 2. You could do not all of 3, some of 3, none of 2. You can look at this as a bunch of different possibilities. But where you would end up with was, in one scenario, all the same revenue, but in a bucket called the Convention Center Fund that you are then using to pay for, that shows up in our fund balances, basically, on the general government side.
Number 3, the refinancing the debt, does changing the TDZ footprint require state approval?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's
So-
the F&A commissioner, right? Not the
No, but there's more people involved than just.
the building commission. Yeah.
Usually there are a lot more people involved than just the commission whenever we have to get anything.
But it's not a legislative change.
No, I don't think it is. I think to change the
correct,
yeah.
TZ statute is, but no, to change our footprint is just the state approval.
Yeah. And I think it's
To reduce it probably would be a problem if we were going to try to increase it or do anything that changed the definition of it. That would require statutory change.
okay.
So I'm not clear where we are in our bonded debt capacity, but there has been discussion in the past, at least among the public, that in fact we are up against, we don't have as much general obligation capacity as we could or should.
That's totally dependent on what your tax rate is.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's
So,
all-
but the point being, we don't have, what would this do if we did not change our tax rate? Where would we be on our bonded debt capacity?
I hope your house doesn't burn down if you don't change the tax.
I understand that. I mean, don't get me wrong, but you understand my question is, where does this, how does this fit within that kind of
So since
metric?
we don't have in Metro, except in the USD, a debt limit. Our ability to borrow is based entirely on our full fiscal profile.
It's exactly as the
Yeah,
councilman
it's-
described. I mean, your debt capacity is based upon your property tax. So.
It's your revenue.
But point being, these tax sources may not increase our bonded debt capacity
But-
because they're not counted in that calculation.
If you move these over to geo debt, then your geo debt increases.
Yeah, but the geo debt,
But you move in the revenue.
they're already, the rating, what we have to worry about is getting downgraded because we don't have sufficient revenue. That's what causes us to have less access to the capital markets. So if the rating agencies are currently looking at our fiscal profile and including the Music City Center debt and revenue and the fact that it's kind of locked up down
Because it's guaranteed.
down on Lower Broad, they're already doing that. They're already concerned about that. So that may not be an incremental. We need to get the pros in here to talk about it, but that may not be an incremental problem.
Emily, I go back to thinking a little bit about the comment you made too about our sensitivity to a downturn. And I'm curious to know, I don't know if we have, but I mean, I know we've been astounded by the success and the growth from the tourism side. Do we have a good understanding of what a downturn could mean? I mean, that's a very cyclical sector.
Yeah.
And I would think before we start playing around too much with some of the stuff on the right-hand side here, we want to make sure that we contemplate some of that too. I mean, if you just think about the threats that are being discussed right now in the paper,
Yeah.
coronavirus, and et cetera. I mean, there's a lot of stuff on the
Yeah.
horizon right now that kind of overall makes me
Yeah.
a little bit worried about our tourism economy.
Yeah, and we're sort of in a late cycle. I mean, that's kind of clear. But the Moody's report, I'll send that to
Yeah,
you. That's a good analysis of.
Did it contemplate
did
how
not-
severely that could get impacted?
It didn't break out the tourism.
'Cause I'm assuming part of the reason we put, once upon a time, there was a decision between the state and Metro to put so many revenue sources behind this was because of concern about that kind of a risk
Yeah, I
too.
think-
So I think just
Yeah, I
making
think,
sure we have a good understanding of that.
Well, so every council member who was
Yeah.
around at the time
Yeah.
says the same thing that Emily said, which is because the economy was in such a horrible position at that time, there was intense energy around the how to mitigate against what if it's a flop.
Yeah.
And really no energy was put into what if it's a tremendous, incredible, beyond our wildest dreams success. And so in a lot of ways, this overabundance of cash here is a result of all the careful energy into how do we protect ourselves if it's a flop. And we've got the opposite scenario now. And my impression is, from talking to the convention center people, is that part of the, and maybe you've seen this firsthand, part of the negotiation over how much they can afford to give is around the fact that their sense of how much of a cash reserve they need is large because it's cyclical, and what if stuff happens, and what if there's a flood, what if. What I don't, and so I think my sense is, without having hard numbers behind it, is that even after a generous cash reserve, they're still so beyond expectations. There is money, but I think the relevant question when if somebody was trying to get in the weeds on refinancing or trying to pay off early, would be the where's the borderline between generous cash reserve and, well, that's just crazy, and I don't really have a sense of that, but I do think that what probably was a good cash reserve a year ago when I talked to them about this is probably smaller. They probably would think of a higher number today. So I think they worry about that.
And there are metrics we use in municipal finance for saying, okay, this will hold us out for this period of time. We spend a lot of time. Bondholders are some of the most risk-averse people you'll ever encounter. Municipal bondholders are particularly risk-averse. But how much cash do you want in the bank? That is something that we can determine, and we can assess, and we can make it so in really any of these scenarios.
But can you review it from the standpoint, is there enough information for tourism in the downturn to know what you would likely see if there was a downturn in the economy, what would happen to tourism in the city?
So we could probably just look at the 2009, 10, because we were a different city then too.
Different city, I'm just thinking, other cities,
Yeah.
Las Vegas, New Orleans, other places, obviously rely on tourism too. Are there any studies that, if people are going to protect bondholders,
I
are
think
there
he's
studies
talking
out
about
there?
stress testing, just
Yeah,
stress
absolutely,
testing
yeah.
your data, and that's feasible.
Yeah, so we should always be cognizant of the fact that we live in a economic cycle, and that at some point, somewhere down the road, we'll hit a downturn. Hopefully it's not as bad as 2009, 2010, it's just the part of the cycle. But, what happens, you don't expect everybody to stop visiting Nashville, but you'll expect to see a decrease at some point.
Can I mention two other things too? The other thing that is always on my mind about this is, so all of a sudden the building is not completely new. It's pretty new, but this situation where it's wildly outperformed anybody's guess, and there's plenty of money there, does beg the question of, on a 20-year time horizon, legitimately, does anything need to be done to the building? Because I certainly wouldn't want to hold on to all the revenue streams longer than necessary if the answer is no.
Right.
But if objectively, when you say it's wildly outperformed and you see the airport's numbers and you see just the wild over-performance compared to what people thought 5 or 10 years ago, if there's any material chance that there's going to be a significant capital project in the convention center on even a 20-year time horizon, then that's got to get quantified into this while the thing is performing so well financially. And I just...
Do they have a reserve and replacement fund?
They do.
They do.
Yeah, I'm thinking more about whether they ever want to be bigger. And I'm not saying they should be. I'm not arguing for it. I absolutely positively don't want to make up stuff to fit the revenue stream. But if legitimately the thing should have some major capital projects on a 20-year time horizon, then people ought not get rid of the revenue
Is there
streams
some
before
option
understanding
for
that.
adding a hotel as well available to them?
I don't know any of the details other than to ask the question
And
of,
to be, this third item, you wouldn't necessarily have to get rid of the revenue streams.
Right.
You could leave them in place, then maybe take a little bit of item 2 and tweak their flexibility a little bit more. You would just refinance as much lower cost of money, GO bonds, and even ironically taxable is cheaper now, which doesn't make any sense, but it's the way the markets are. You could preserve all that. And the standard procedure is to have a repair and replacement fund that you can draw on for things like new carpet and,
Kitchen
FF&E.
redos.
I think they're doing that.
I'm pretty sure they are. And then if you wanted to add to the building and make it 2 million square feet instead of 1, or whatever, you could do another parity bond issue, which is contemplated in the bond documents as well.
And then the other thing I wanted to ask you is there any scenario where taking excess money and attempting to pay it off faster makes sense? Pay off the bond obligations faster?
There's 2 options there. The call feature on the 51 million, okay, and as a possibility. The other option for the make-whole call bonds, that's an open market tender, and they're trading at 140, is that 150? 150? These are my friends in municipal finance world.
I'm sorry, what does that mean?
So 150% of par. So instead of paying $1,000 for one bond, you pay $1,500. Yeah.
It's not a good deal.
Yeah. So because the interest rate, they were structured as premium bonds at the get-go. Interest rates have gone down, and so those would be your two options.
Tell
And
me
then,
the second one again.
open market purchase tender offer. That's where you ask bondholders to sell them, part with them, which they're not going to do. They have like 5% coupons.
So realistically, given current market conditions and where the bonds are trading, the only real opportunity for an accelerated pay down would be the 51 million?
The 51 million, and then defeasing it, the make-whole call, doing a financing of that call feature and on using general obligation debt, which is lower cost of money than convention center debt. Those would be the two viable options. And and in addition,
570 million in debt that you'd be refinancing that way, essentially, right? Is what it'd be.
I think it's more than that,
Yeah.
So that's the principle.
right? But
Not
you,
counting that's at least,
and
that's what you
if
had.
interest rates continue to deteriorate, it could become more in the money, as we say in municipal finance. And you would have to really run this. We'd have to, get our financial advisor to do the math, run it, analyze it, before making any decisions. I'm just tossing these 3 and then welcoming any others for the mayor's office to think about as alternatives.
If we didn't change the TDZ footprint, would any state approval be required for refinancing?
You have to submit a form to the state comptroller whenever you
Like any
refinance.
debt.
You know the number of it, I bet. But I do not know what authority they would have to change the TDZ under that process. None that I can think of.
Thanks.
No.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Again, they could pass a state law change that would allow them to rebuild.
Well, they have the opportunity to decide that they don't want the TDZ to, they'd go back to the State Building Commission. They probably have that authority. They wouldn't do it because of the bond issuance. But
Mid-bond issuance, the state could unilaterally take the TDZ away?
No,
That doesn't sound right.
No.
No,
We would have a big problem with that.
yeah.
Yeah, they can't
They
change
wouldn't
it.
do
Or
it because
trust the
it's
state
it's securing the
timing,
bond.
right.
But
No.
this is a thing the public gets confused about too, because there have been confusing statements by different people. Nobody's changing the TDZ without state approval, and while the current bonds are being paid, nobody's changing the TDZ, period.
Probably not.
Right. And, I mean, nobody could change it voluntarily while these bonds are outstanding without the,
We certainly can't go to the state to ask for the TDZ to be reduced in size so that it would produce less money than what we're currently getting and than what we have promised to our bondholders. We have I'm pretty sure we have a covenant in there that says that we will not take that action.
Right.
Now, whether, taking action to expand it, that's a different story.
Well, and if you refinance it, you're taking those bondholders off of the shelf, and you're gonna have probably the same bondholders. You're taking them out and you're replacing them with a new understanding. That's why you would do that, to give more flexible. And you could keep it all in place, whatever. It's up to this is really an executive branch decision ultimately, but you could do that too.
So we're over our normal 1 hour, which is fine. This is a great discussion, and I think it's something that we all need to understand, because this is a very complex and complicated issue. I have invited Butch Spearden to come to our next meeting to talk about the tourism promotion and his use of the hotel motel tax and the Music City Fund. Explain kind of how that works and answer any questions around that. That's not the convention center, which is really what we've been focused on here, is that debt.
And I tried to do a little bit of work on how other cities do fund their CVBs, and let me tell you, it is really opaque. I'm really struggling with. I've got figured out Memphis, so but it's a real.
For this purpose, we really compete with New Orleans and Orlando.
Right,
and
right.
Atlanta. So I mean, that's it's not even Charlotte or Austin or the places that we think about kind of on economic development terms that we compete with. These guys in this arena, we are in the top tier of that. So that's who we really ought to kind of understand who does what.
Well, I'll have more information on that. I was
So, is there any action we need to take on this at this point? I think we've received this. This is great work.
It is.
And it's certainly increased my understanding a lot on how this.
to me, the only action I would request is the raw materials of that chart that you held up and this, I think the public would really benefit from where they can, I know it's hard to put in one document, or at least a 2-page document, so people could tie the chart that shows what taxes have what limitations to the cash that comes in from them.
So that they can dissect.
And would you mind
You can do 3 dimensions.
checking
That sounds like I'm not sure how to do that.
if there's any information
sure how
on
to do
the
that.
downturn in the economy, if there's any
Yeah.
type of information that basically says tourism is likely to decrease by a certain percentage?
Yeah, let me look and see in that, in that, my network, municipal finance people. One of the challenges when it comes to tourism taxes is they are a very cheerful bunch. The future is always very bright, but there might be some retrospective studies that could help us.
Well, the future's always bright, but there's always, there's dips before you get to that future. That's what I'm looking for.
I think that's actually also a good question for Butch.
Yeah, that's a great
For
idea.
him to be thinking about, because he certainly has resources that were the sources of some of the materials that we have here that potentially could provide
The bizarro world, uncharted territory we're in is if tourism falls off by 10%, it sets us back to the beginning of 2019.
Yeah.
I know, yes, it is. It is a strange place. I mean, we have to understand it would be nice to understand what's going on this year, that we've had this kind of explosion, if you will.
Can I,
that's seemingly out of any kind of trend line that we've had.
Can I ask one question of the group, which is, any reactions to these 3 ideas? Any other thoughts that we just?
I can sum up my thoughts. I mean, I really.
You don't want to lose state money, I got that.
I don't want to lose state money unnecessarily.
Okay.
I really would like the city in a credible, believable, transparent way to figure out what the future of the convention center would be on this trajectory. Because it's, like, even saying that out loud runs the risk of making it sound like trying to build a building to match the revenue stream, which I do not want to do. But, like, if we're, blowing through everything, if that keeps up for, like, I think we need to know the answer to that question.
Right.
And we need a process to, is somebody going to definitively say, nope, that building's great for quarter century,
Right.
or not?
Well, how do you invite Charlie Stark? How do you get an idea of where we are? Butch can do some of it, but don't you need the convention center folks to come over and say what's going to happen?
And I'm gonna,
Well, they should have a long-range plan.
I'm gonna underscore, the public needs a credible, believable, transparent,
Exactly.
which means it's
Yeah.
more than just asking the convention center guy,
Yeah. Well, and,
who I
but,
like very much.
but, yeah, because, you know, and you could answer, even if you couldn't get that answer, you would be able to answer that question by keeping those revenue streams in place, but getting those buckets of money a little bit more flexibility for use for other purposes. Stop them from being locked up like they are. Get yourself some cheaper money. What, you know, a lot of problems, other problems could get solved that way.
I think your presentation, it was great.
It's a wonderful
And I think it's
presentation.
one of these things I think we think about and try to figure out what it all means.
And if we
Try to
can,
digest
if we
it
can
all.
clarify these things, in subsequent meetings, I think that's also our role, really, is to try and, and so for some of these, for example, getting again, a credible, independent look at some of these ideas might be, even if somebody just came and went, this is kind of directionally what you're looking at, not the specifics.
And Emily makes a good point that the desire to figure that out goes down a little bit if you keep the revenue streams, increase flexibility of spending.
I just want us to be thoughtful in presenting this to the general public in layman's term. Not everybody's a statistician. The taxpayers, we need to look at that and not just say, here's this report, which a lot of people, I think, would be more apt to embrace what we're trying to do if we do something with that. It's a lot of work, I can tell you, and my hat's off to you.
It's
It's a lot of work.
a different language.
It's a different
really,
language,
really,
exactly. But we want to bring the bodies along as we go through this journey and say, okay, we know that you are not all from the business background of this, but to educate the community so that when we ask them to come aboard, then they'll be willing to buy into what we're trying to do. Because I'm sitting here thinking now, I can see property taxes and state taxes and all of these things mounting, but we must be really acceptable to making sure that the average individual, it's going to take some work, yes, but in order to get the full community behind what we're trying to do here and save money in the same stream, then they must be able to understand what we're doing.
Great.
Absolutely.
So, Mr. Chairman, are you looking for a motion to adjourn?
Well, I just want to point out, I did send out the draft list of targeted, prioritized recommendations from the prior report, a lot of which is what we've been doing, so good on us.
We're getting something done.
If we didn't have a chance to discuss it, we can put that off, or if anyone has any input on it later, we can do that. I despair overwriting these minutes. Adequately capturing the discussion we've had today. I may say, please review the video to people.
Margaret said we could.
So with that, we'll take a motion.
So I would move that, first of all, we fumigate this room, because I've heard at least 6 people cough in here, and then 1 person sneeze. So,
Wash your
everybody
hands.
stays well, and I would move to adjourn.
Second.
We are adjourned. Thank you.
Wonderful report.
Great discussion.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information about this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.